Hi, English students. I want you to go ahead and take out this paper that we completed in class as a survey, the What is Love survey. We're going to do is I'm going to try to help you to craft arguments that are very hard to argue with. When we talk about crafting arguments, one of the things that we differentiate between is argumentation and persuasion. Last week or a couple days ago, we had an argument about some of these different claims that were made. In fact, more likely, we had a persuasive session is probably better put, because an argument would be, according to our class's definition, something that's much more structured. So when we write in our class, we're going to really think about structuring our ideas to persuade, and that's called argumentation versus just spouting my opinions, which is more of what persuasion is. Some of the stuff that you might see online on a Twitter feed or somewhere else is more persuasion. An argument is very logical and ordered and has a real rhyme and reason to it. And I want to go through 6 steps, 6 specific things that should be actually in your argument, actually technically 7. So what I'd like you to do is turn your paper over. We're going to do a little bit of copying. We're actually going to change this claim because there's some problems with this claim. And we're going to make this very arguable, and we're going to make this so that you're going to be able to defend your point of view very well. So on the other side, I want you to notice how this claim changed. This claim actually changed. We're going to read it this way now. The average teenager can have the romantic feelings often associated with what society deems as true love. This is a difference. This is quite a bit different than what is on the other side of the paper. There's 4 things that I looked for when I looked at trying to craft this claim in a way that I could argue for it. The first thing that you may notice is that the word average teenager changed. You may also see that there's more of a definition for true love, or a little bit more of what we're saying true love is, what society deems as true love. And we also tried to define what kind of love it was, because some students were asking, is this romantic love? Is this love between friends? So basically, we had to do this. We had to make sure that this claim was specific and focused. I want you to look at this list right here. When you're forming claims, you need to make sure that these 4 rules are followed. One is that it guides in the entire argument. You have to have a claim that you know that we're going to come up with our main arguments or main reasons for. So this claim right here needs to comprise the fullness of my argument, meaning that if there's anything I know that I'm going to argue about that's outside of this claim, that means I need to change the claim to encompass that. We'll do some practice with that. The second thing is we need to make sure this claim is arguable. Matters of opinion are not good. Pepsi's better than Coke. It's you can argue about that, of course, but you can't have a good argument because we can't base off of data or things that we can readily observe. Also, it needs to be a defendable position. So, for example, things like we landed on the moon aren't arguable, which, by the way, actually people have argued that we haven't landed on the moon. But for the most part, things that are easily defendable are not good things to argue about. This is guiding, and it's also arguable at this point. At this point, it's also specific and focused, meaning that we have words here that make this a lot more specific. For example, instead of just saying teenager, this says average teenager. So we immediately get rid of all these exceptional cases where a teenager may have a disorder, and that makes this teenager unable to, for example, have romantic feelings, things like this, okay? We also made sure that we used the word romantic to describe love so that we knew what kind of love this was. And then over here, we try to give more of a definition to true love. And this is still somewhat debatable. It's not the best, okay? But feelings often associated with what society deems as true love is more specific than just saying, again, over here, teenagers don't know what true love really feels like. there are some real problems with specificity with this sentence. So you'll want to make sure that you're as specific as possible. Okay. And the last thing is this: we want to try to pick a claim that's interesting and unique. And this, I think, was interesting to our class. We're going to say, generally speaking, that students felt strongly about this. This is also something that is fairly unique, meaning that it hasn't been argued to death. When we say things unique, you kind of get tired of the same arguments over and over again. And we'll talk about what some of those arguments are later. But you want to try to use claims that engage your audience and haven't been argued before, or at least in the way that we're going to argue for them. Here's the biggest thing from the back of this is that you see these 6 different things that would go into a body paragraph if you're writing an essay of an argument. But these are the 6 things that every argument should have. Sometimes they're in order. And when we talk about these in class, what I want you to do is when you write your paragraphs, I want you to go in this order, sentence by sentence to start. And as we become more adept at creating arguments, you can use some of these in different parts of your paragraph. But for right now, I want us to be very logical about how we go about argumentation. The first step when you create a body paragraph or when you start off is to have that claim. But after you have a claim, you should set up a reason or reasons. This is a clear statement that will be defended that's meant to support your claim. For example, a psychological study reveals that teenagers are capable of deep emotion. I'm going to use some data or some evidence to show that this is true. And I would like you to copy this on your paper. I know this is a bit of writing, but your evidence, your data, or factual evidence used to prove the argument, okay? So my next step is to find data or evidence. Dr. Carl A. Pickard, a noted author and psychologist, has extensive experience with teens. He notes that the experience of being in love in adolescence can be all-consuming, so each is on in the other's mind. And this also came from Psychology Today. So the next step, and this is the part that students often forget about, we think we have that evidence out there and it makes it clear. And this is where most arguments stop. But this is the important part, is that you continue on with that argument. Explain. A warrant is an explanation of the data and how that supports your claim. So we've also talked about how you want to have a reason, then you have a quote or evidence, and then you analyze that evidence. It's the same type of idea. Your warrant is going to do that. So we're going to explain this and how this proves my claim. What is often described as infatuation, then, is a normal part of love, and it is a relatively observable behavior in teens' lives. The next step is to, at times, include statements after your warrant that explain your warrant and explain more how your logic is valid. So you even want to explain this more. Naturally, it follows that even if a few teenagers can experience this, then they can, in fact, have it. The claim is valid. So I am going to be very specific about this warrant and explain it in more detail, talk about my logic that I'm using in that warrant. The next step, and this is the biggie that everybody tends to leave out, is stating what the opposition is going to say, the counterargument. The counterargument is a statement indicating circumstances when the general argument does not hold true, okay, or what your opposition is going to claim. Many would argue that this infatuated, all-consuming love is nothing more than puppy love, a substitute for true love. I need to make sure that I address this argument because this is going to be what I believe is the main argument against this idea that a teenager is capable of deep emotion. That it's not really real. It's just puppy love, right? Okay, now I'm going to respond to that. And that is my response to the counter argument, or what we also call the rebuttal. Many times this does lead to more evidence or warranting. So sometimes this can lead to more evidence that you'll need to have. And I did include that in this statement. Unfortunately, for parents who want to simply dismiss teen relationships, Dr. Pickard guesses that 15% of relationships still have the robust qualities that qualify as true love, and that this also includes the infatuated feelings to some degree. So in this statement, I could even go further and talk about how that is just explaining that more. But you can see in this paragraph right here, I have quite a bit. And this is what I want you to create in each of your body paragraphs. Look at this example and think about these definitions and try to do that this week.